Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you had a great evening. Today's show is going to be a collaboration of a few of the people who have been reporting on the Mica Miller case, additional with Chris Skinner. And I think you're going to find it very interesting. These are important things to be brought up. It seems as if God is increasing the fire on this case and on both Mica and Chris. And so, as promised, I'm going to start the show with Jack Fox. Then I'm going to go into a short video that Robbie Harvey had put up just sometime this afternoon. And then I'm going to go over Leslie, who is another content creator, who also found actually the transcripts to the September 5th, 2021 sermon that John Paul Miller did the day before Chris Skinner passed away. And we're going to go over that. So this will be a long show. So we're first going to start off with Jack Fox. Now, why is that important? He breaks down in 3 very short videos. And remember, this is a man who has a 20-plus year career as a speech analysis expert for law enforcement and various other agencies to detect deception. He is actually considered the human lie detector. Okay? So let me put on my headphones. I try not to keep my headphones on because they make my headaches worse. So I only put them on when needed. So first we're going to go over one of his first videos, and it's called Big Red Flags and the Announcement of What Happened to His Wife, Mica. And this is a year old. Okay, so let's start with that. I'll add it to the stage. Okay.
We're going to look at the death of Mica Miller and the strange announcement of her husband, Pastor John Miller, in this episode from Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Mica Miller died very recently, shortly after serving divorce papers, I think, on her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller. Now, Pastor John Paul made an announcement to his congregation about Mica's death, and it is bizarre.
I'm not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can. So y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next, little bit. 'Cause I don't want to I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks. I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're going to have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come, but just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, my bishop, he can pray. I'll give him a microphone, he'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well, I appreciate it.
Come on, let's pray.
So many red flags in that statement. It lasts about 1 minute, 20 seconds, and he spends half of it building up to the announcement. The announcement itself is very short, but he takes a long time to get there. And often people will waffle and talk around the houses before saying something they are very sensitive about saying. And I think that's what's happening here, because it's not until he's at least halfway through the announcement that he actually makes the announcement. And what he says when he's not talking about the death of his wife is really revealing. So much of it is telling the congregation what to do. They're going to have to stand up. They are going to not talk about the announcement here in the building. I mean, that is really controlling. So they have to stand up. And by the way, before I make the announcement, he talks about that he wants them to keep going to church and keep serving the church. So he's still not made the announcement. He's telling people what he wants them to do, how he wants them to react. It's very controlling. He really wants to be in charge of the narrative. And once he's made the announcement, he tells them all to pray for him, to pray for his kids, keep his family in the prayers. So he's very, very controlling. He's very, I think, a controlling person, but also he's controlling the reaction to this announcement. Before he mentions the death of his wife, he talks about himself. I'm going to be taking a bit of a break, and I don't have to want to have to worry about the church. So he's self-obsessed as well. His biggest worry, as he lists it here, is not the death of his wife, the effect on her family, his family, or anything like that. No, he may have to worry about the church. So self-obsessed there. And look at the way he announces the death. He says, I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. Yeah. It was it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina, and we're going to have a funeral for her next Sunday at 3 p.m. Before he announces that his wife has passed away, he tells us how he found out about it. Now, why is that important for him to say, I got a call late last night? Why is it important for him to tell us how he found out about the death? I find that very interesting. Is he creating distance? Very possibly, because also he tells us that it wasn't close to him that she died. It was up in North Carolina. So as important to him as announcing the fact his wife has passed away is the distance between him, because he got a phone call and it was up in North Carolina, between him and the death. And then he tells us the manner of the death. It was self-induced. And then he says, you all know she wasn't well mentally. So he's convincing us here as to why the death happened. He's controlling the narrative. And you all knew that she wasn't well mentally. It's not just me, Pastor John Paul, saying that. Everyone knew she wasn't well mentally. So don't question this death. Again, controlling the narrative. And what's missing from that announcement? Any sense of sadness. No sense of sadness at all. And no empathy for anyone involved, not his wife, not the congregation, not her family, apart from himself, and to a tiny part, his children. He is completely and utterly self-obsessed. What I thought was very revealing is he says, and so I'm sure there'd be more details to come. More details to come, not more information, but more details to come. Based on what you've said, what more is there to say, Pastor John Paul? Really, not more to say, but more details to come. And I think that is leakage. And I think he knows that more is going to come out. In conclusion, he is very controlling as a personality. He's self-obsessed. His announcement is about himself, how he wants people to react, what he wants people to do for him, rather than about the sad death of his wife. It's important for him, for some reason, to show his distance from the death. And it's important for him to lead the narrative around the death, to say how it happened. And also, he knows there are more details to come. What did you spot? Let me know in the comments or in social.
Okay, so this is important to note because we're building up, okay? This is one of the first out of 3 videos of an analysis of this very same announcement that Jack Fox does. Then we have 2 more. Then we're going to go on to the Robbie Harvey video that came out. And then we will go over the sermon the day before Chris died. Okay. Now, again, we're building up. This is a year ago. This man knew nothing about what was going to be reported, nothing that was going to be found at the time he did these analysis. And by the way, the name of his channel is Never a Truer Word. I just want to make sure I get that out there. Okay, so the next one. This is once again red flags in his announcement of what happened to his wife, Mica. Okay. I'm hoping to God it is looks like it's a different one. Okay, here we go.
You can get more from Never a Truer Word by subscribing on Spotify. If you are a Spotify listener, and 90% of you are, according to the stats, then you can subscribe to get early access to the weekly episodes, video episodes, so you can follow along with the statements, exclusive subscriber episodes, and a chance to leave comments for future episodes too. Go to the Spotify page for Never a Truer Word and press subscribe or unlock. And if you do decide to subscribe, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. We're going to look at the death of Mica Miller and the strange announcement of her husband, Pastor John Miller, in this episode from Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Mica Miller died very recently, shortly after serving divorce papers, I think, on her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller. Now, Pastor John Paul made an announcement to his congregation about Mica's death, and it is bizarre.
I'm not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can. So y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next, little bit. 'Cause I don't want to have, I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're going to have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come, but just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, my bishop, he can pray. I'll give him a microphone, he'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well, I appreciate it.
Come on, let's pray.
So many red flags in that statement. It lasts about 1 minute, 20 seconds, and he spends half of it building up to the announcement. The announcement itself is very short, but he takes a long time to get there. And often people will waffle and talk around the houses before saying something they are very sensitive about saying. And I think that's what's happening here, because it's not until he's at least halfway through the announcement that he actually makes the announcement. And what he says when he's not talking about the death of his wife is really revealing. So much of it is telling the congregation what to do. They're going to have to stand up. They are going to not talk about the announcement here in the building. I mean, that is really controlling. So they have to stand up. And by the way, before I make the announcement, he talks about that he wants them to keep going to church and keep serving the church. So he's still not made the announcement. He's telling people what he wants them to do, how he wants them to react. It's very controlling. He really wants to be in charge of the narrative. And once he's made the announcement, he tells them all to pray for him, to pray for his kids, keep his family in the prayers. So he's very, very controlling. He's very, I think, a controlling person, but also he's controlling the reaction to this announcement. Before he mentions the death of his wife, he talks about himself. I'm going to be taking a bit of a break, and I don't have to want to have to worry about the church. So he's self-obsessed as well. His biggest worry, as he lists it here, is not the death of his wife, the effect on her family, his family, or anything like that. No, he may have to worry about the church. So self-obsessed there. And look at the way he announces the death. He says, I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. Yeah. It was it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina, and we're going to have a funeral for her next Sunday at 3 p.m. Before he announces that his wife has passed away, he tells us how he found out about it. Now, why is that important for him to say, I got a call late last night? Why is it important for him to tell us how he found out about the death? I find that very interesting. Is he creating distance? Very possibly, because also he tells us that it wasn't close to him that she died. It was up in North Carolina. So as important to him as announcing the fact his wife has passed away is the distance between him, because he got a phone call and it was up in North Carolina, between him and the death. And then he tells us the manner of the death. It was self-induced. And then he says, you all know she wasn't well mentally. So he's convincing us here as to why the death happened. He's controlling the narrative. And y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally. It's not just me, Pastor John Paul, saying that. Everyone knew she wasn't well mentally. So don't question this death. Again, controlling the narrative. And what's missing from that announcement? Any sense of sadness. No sense of sadness at all. And no empathy for anyone involved, not his wife, not the congregation, not her family, apart from himself, and to a tiny part, his children. He is completely and utterly self-obsessed. What I thought was very revealing is he says, and so I'm sure there'd be more details to come. More details to come, not more information, but more details to come. What, based on what you've said, what more is there to say, Pastor John Paul? Really, not more to say, but more details to come. And I think that is leakage, and I think he knows that more is going to come out. In conclusion, he is very controlling as a personality. He's self-obsessed. His announcement is about himself, how he wants people to react, what he wants people to do for him, rather than about the sad death of his wife. It's important for him, for some reason, to show his distance from the death. And it's important for him to lead the narrative around the death, to say how it happened. And also, he knows there are more details to come. What did you spot? Let me know in the comments or on social media. All the links are in the show description. Subscribe if you want more content like this. Share it with anyone you know that's searching for justice for Mica. And if you press the like button, that means it gets to more people as well. So thank you very much for doing that.
Okay, now I know some of you are going to go, Anne, we just heard this. I know you're going to have to trust the process. You're going to have to trust the process. We've got one more. And this one is called, Why Can't He Talk Like a Grieving Widower? Okay. Now, what was in those first two? The distance. That's very important. He was distancing himself from early on. The controlling of the narrative and having to put out that false accusation against Mica that she was psychotic, that she was having mental breakdowns, that she wasn't mentally well. So we all know this, but we have to go in this order. It's very important. And then we're going to follow up with Robbie Harvey's video. And you're going to see how it all lines up with everything we have found in this past year.
We're back with Pastor John Paul Miller. If he is a grieving widower, then why can't he talk like one? That's what we're going to look at in this episode of Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and look to give you the confidence that comes from knowing what people around you are truly saying. Pastor John Paul Miller came to my attention when I saw a video of him announcing the death of his wife, Mica, to his church at a congregation, and it was just bizarre. There's a link in the show description to the breakdown of that, but really it was so strange. Recap on the big things that I noticed. Number one, he delayed the announcement. He said, I'm going to make an announcement, and then he spent half the time of the announcement not making the announcement, as if he was delaying getting to it. Quite often happens when we've got something sensitive that we don't really want to say. Sometimes that's a lie, sometimes it's just a sensitive event, but he delayed making that announcement. And instead, he controlled the reaction. He was telling the congregation what to do. He told them not to talk about the announcement inside the building and ordered that they should pray for him and his kids, but not for his dead wife. He led with his worries. Before he announced the death of his wife, He talked about what was worrying him. That was he was going to have to take a bit of a break, and he didn't want to have to worry about the church. I think real self-obsessedness there. And he created distance between himself and the death. He said, I got a call late last night. I didn't know anything about this death until someone called me to tell me about it. And it was up in North Carolina. So the death happened far away from me. And the other thing from that sermon, what was missing? No sense of sadness at all, no sense of grieving. He cannot talk like a grieving widower, and no sense of empathy for anyone but himself and his children. If you are new to the channel, we look at the words that someone uses and analyze them to see what they're really saying. So we don't look at theories or any other kind of evidence, only the words that people use. If you want to get more like this, then press the subscribe or press the follow button, and that way you will get every new episode from Never a Truer Word. Please share this with anyone you think would be interested as well. The like button helps this get to more people as well. And what's coming in this episode is informed by some of the comments on the first breakdown of the sermon. So thank you very much for those comments. Thank you very much for those observations. If you think I'm missing anything, if you think I've got something wrong, do let me know in the comments below or get in touch on social media. All the links are in the show description. So here's some more things that I've noticed from this sermon.
My request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give.
My request to you is that you will continue to come to the church and search and give. And it's that word give that got me wondering, what does he mean by give? You know, is it serve and give service, or give to the church, or is it give financially? These churches get a bad reputation, a lot of it justified. And I think this is before he's announced the death of his wife. Is he worried about the money, possible loss of funds or something like that? Please continue to serve and give. I think this is a direct appeal for money, a really strange thing to do when you are announcing the death of your wife. Next.
It's all I can, yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now, so.
It's all I can, yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So, and it's adrenaline that interests me there. Regardless of the scientific facts about what adrenaline does, in words and language, we use adrenaline to talk about things that are thrilling, to talk about things that are exciting. And he's talking about the death of his wife, and he's just found out about this. And he says he is going on adrenaline right now, a word that is used with thrilling situations and exciting situations. What a strange phrase to use.
My wife has passed away, and yeah, it was self-induced.
He says, my wife has passed away. Yeah. And it was self-induced. Self-induced. Interesting use of words there. I've heard of people having injuries that are self-inflicted before, but self-induced, what does induced mean? Well, one meaning of induce is started, not finished. Self-induced, self-started. Is this saying that he's blaming his wife for what happened? Did she start something and someone else finished it? Something else finished it. Self-induced,
Oh,
I
boy.
think, is a big, big tell. Away from the sermon, the shady pastor has given an interview to local TV.
She was probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for. She was incredibly affirming. We spent every night together for hours, just talking and talking and talking.
So this is the grieving widow. She was probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for. She was incredibly affirming. We spent every night together for hours, just talking and talking and talking. It's the grieving widow there saying she was the greatest wife. That might all seem quite nice at first glance, but let's delve into what he actually says. Number one, not the greatest person. Mica was not the greatest person, just the greatest wife, i.e. how Mica relates to him. He is really self-absorbed. Everything here has to relate to him. So she's the greatest wife. And she was incredibly affirming. Affirming to who? Affirming to him. So this is what she gave me. She was a great wife, and she was incredibly affirming to me. Says nothing else about Mica's character, her family, how she related to other people around them, what her personality was like, what she contributed to the world beyond what she did for Pastor John Paul Miller. And it's not glowing at all. Look, she was only probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for. Even at this moment, the supposed grieving widower is open to the fact there are better wives out there. Just probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for, and anyone could ask for. He's not even talking for himself here. Just in general, Mica was probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for. He doesn't talk for himself personally there at all. And he says we'd spend every night together for hours just talking and talking and talking. Just is a word that is often deceptive. And what he wants to create here is a picture that this is the only thing that happened in their relationship. They talked and talked and talked for hours every single night. I don't believe that. I think there's a lot more going on in that relationship, and he's trying to minimize that down using that deceptive word just to just talking and talking and talking. The pastor goes on.
She had struggled with suicide before, and each time, helped her through it, took her to her doctor, and we got through it, and everything was fine. And she even gave a few testimonies here at church. We have on video of times where she had battled suicide, but God took care of her and got her through it.
So he wants to say there that Mica had mental health problems. And by the way, if you don't believe me, we have proof. She even gave a few testimonies here at church we have on video. Why does he feel the need to offer proof of Mica's mental health worries? Why can he not just say it and it just be accepted? Why does he feel he needs to offer proof of this? That is exceedingly worrying. Not just she had mental health problems, but hey, I've got them on video. I've got proof she had mental health problems. And by the way, who got her through these mental health problems in the past? Because he says different versions. He says at the start, we helped her through it. We got her through it by taking her to a doctor. So we helped her through it. We got her through it. And then he gives God the credit at the end. God took care of her and got her through it. And that phrase sends shivers down my spine, because he is saying God's will was to take care of her and get her through it. Is it God's will what happened to her since then? I do not like this guy at all. In conclusion, Pastor John Paul Miller is controlling. He controlled the reaction. Here's how I want you to react when I tell you about how my wife has died. He's controlling the narrative. He's getting out there ahead with the mental health stories, and also with where he was and how he found out as well. He's exceedingly self-interested. His glowing tribute to his wife actually was about what his wife did for him. And he's got nothing nice to say about his wife as a person at all. His words do not suggest that he has real grief. What do you think? Get in touch on social media.
Okie dokie. So that was important to break down. No, Matthew, the Lord has laid in my lap this entire case. Everything I would seek to find, research, I would find immediately. And if there was stuff I missed, God would go, look over here. And this guy just came across my feed one day, and I went, well, this is interesting. And then I reached out to him. And he also did a breakdown for me of Johnny Jacobs. So I've gone back and forth with him via email, and he's really, really good. And I did a show about him and this announcement, and this was all on that one show. But it's important to play all this, and you could see how it built up to a wonderful analysis of that announcement that we all were suspicious of from the beginning, but it's good to hear from an expert. Now, remember everything that was brought up, including, as he said, it was very important to get that message out of how mental Mica was, okay? We all know that. Medication, lithium, mental, okay? It's all we've heard for over a year. Now, we're going to go to Robbie Harvey, who did an absolutely incredible job. It's a 10-minute video. Blew my mind. But it goes along with where we are right now to show we are on the right track. This case is just as on fire and as intense as it was May of 2024. And there's a good reason for that, because I think God's about to strike. And that was actually prophesied this morning and over the weekend. So the grace has run out. God's grace, his love is forever, but his grace and patience have ran out. So just so you know. All right, so let's get Robbie.
before Mica Miller's death, she made one last attempt to settle things peacefully with her pastor husband, John Paul Miller, by agreeing to meet with him one night in March. But of course, John Paul Miller's version of how that meeting went is very different than what friends of Mica say how it went.
She came over to the house. The last time I saw her was a few weeks before she passed away. We spent about 4 hours together, and we hugged and kissed, and she was in and out of psychotic conversation.
But before we dive deeper into that meeting, I need to show you on the timeline when this occurred. Remember, in the early hours of March 11th, after separating with her husband, Mica Miller hung out with a young, handsome young man named DJ. Now, DJ was a staff member at John Paul Miller's church, Solid Rock, and he and Mica became close friends, especially because they both loved missions. In the early morning hours of March 11th, Mica and DJ shared a kiss on the beach because Mica had moved on from her abusive husband. Though they were separated and they hadn't been living together for many, many months and had a postnuptial agreement saying that they were allowed to see other people, John Paul Miller lost it. And he fired DJ.
Yeah, where did you touch her?
Nowhere below reproach. I mean, that's a promise.
Well, the person that saw and got the picture said that you touched her chest.
We kissed, so maybe like her face, neck, but I promise you, nothing below the neck, chest.
And she touched you where?
Just the same place, like my face. And
My guy said there was more than that.
more than what?
More than what you're telling me.
Well, I'm telling you, if you have the videos and the pictures, you can fact check it.
I mean, he'll have them to me by morning time. But he told me there was more than that.
And he even told his entire church that DJ and Mica were doing more than kissing, which was a lie. He was actively slandering his soon-to-be ex-wife and now former employee. Now, a couple days later on March 13th, Tricia Ross, the assistant to John Paul Miller, is instructed by him to file a police report on Mica, saying that she stole thousands of dollars from Solid Rock. Police found no such thing. Then, the next day, Mica Miller calls police, saying she has found another tracking device on her vehicle. Then, on March 15th, Mica and John Paul have a court date in probate court, where JP tries to lie to the court, and they don't believe him. Mica wins.
Before she passed away, I took her to probate court. And in 3 minutes time, she went in, she walked back out. When I went in, they said, your wife is mentally ill and she needs medicine desperately. And I said, okay, let's do it. Let's get her the medicine. Let's get her help. And they said, she's not a danger to anybody in society, so we can't force her to do it.
And that's simply not true. And again, remember, on that same day, Mica reported another one of her tires being slashed. I lay out that entire week for this reason. The meeting in the car happened in between all of that chaos on March 12th. Remember, in this meeting, John Paul Miller claims that Mica was begging to come home, but her family wouldn't let her, that she was mentally unstable during this meeting, that they were kissing.
She came over to the house. The last time I saw her was a few weeks before she passed away. We spent about 4 hours together, and we hugged and kissed, and she was in and out of psychotic conversation. She wants to come home so bad, but her family won't let her. But she desperately wanted to come home. She was just so afraid her family would disown her.
Well, I have the audio from that meeting. And once again, John Paul Miller is a liar.
And yeah, when DJ comforted me because you were crazy, I'm still a helpmate. I made a mistake with him. I made a mistake. And I said, go home and tell your mom what just happened. I'm going to go home and tell my father. I'm going to tell whoever needs to know to keep me accountable so I never fall into that temptation again. That's what I told him.
You said that you told him to lie
No,
and not answer the phone and not
no,
talk to me.
no, no.
That's what it says on the recording. No,
wait.
It's on the recording.
I don't care what's on the recording.
Okay.
You're getting distracted from what I'm trying to tell you.
Go inside. I'll make
No.
you coffee. I'll make you coffee.
No. If you want to make coffee and bring it out here, you can.
Okay, I don't know how to make coffee. I lied. I'm sorry.
We could be friends, you know.
Listen to it one more time.
Thinking to start cutting carbs. I need to drop my belly fat.
Here's the most interesting weight loss fact I learned.
And yeah,
Sorry, guys.
when DJ comforted me because you were crazy, I'm still a helpmate. I made a mistake with him. I made a mistake. And I said, go home and tell your mom what just happened. I'm going to go home and tell my father. I'm going to tell whoever needs to know to keep me accountable so I never fall into that temptation again. That's what I told him.
You said that you told him to lie
No,
and not answer the phone and not
no,
talk to me.
no, no.
That's what it says on the recording. No,
wait.
It's on the recording.
I don't care what's on the recording. You're getting distracted from what I'm trying to tell you.
Go inside. I'll make
No.
you coffee. I'll make you coffee.
No. If you want to make coffee and bring it out here, you can.
Okay, I don't know how to make coffee. I lied. I'm sorry.
We could be friends, you know.
This is clear evidence that Mica is done with John Paul Miller. She tells him that she's not interested in being with him, that they can only be friends. He invites her inside, but she immediately tells him no. And if anyone sounds mentally unstable, depressed, manic, schizophrenic, bipolar, it's not Mica. It's John Paul, as we have seen time and time again. Mica is in control. Mica sounds stable and in charge. Mica sounds like she wants to live. And Mica sounds like the very person that witnesses described in the final months of her life. Mica is normal. Remember, the very next day, Trisha Ross had a police report filed against Mica. The day after that, Mica finds another tracking device on her car. And the very next day after that, John Paul Miller brings his best friend, Mark Kaufman, to court to try and make up lies about Mica Miller in court that day. And they did not believe John Paul. The only thing that Mica lost that day was the restraining order because of this meeting.
And he was texting me at this point saying, I'll be at your house at 12:55. I'm armed and ready.
If this guy can get this hot mama right here in a wheelchair, you have no excuse.
So there are still parked up there. Wait up there. All right, wave them down. Wave them down.
Okay.
Hope I'm talking to my husband.
The night in the car did not go the way John Paul Miller had hoped. Mica had him on video, admitting to the things he did. Yes, Mica had him on video, admitting to the things he did.
But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that?
And because she didn't want to come back to him, the revenge tour began. And just over a month later, Mica Miller was dead.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
The FBI. They're gonna get your ass.
Wife for my dreams, if you leave, I promise it'd be a nightmare.
A lot of people want to know if you murdered your wife.
I have $1,300 in my pocket and burned it.
On 900 milligrams of lithium. I'm seeing a counselor every week. I'm going to inner healing. I'm going to deliverance 3 times a week with pastors in the area. I'm doing everything I can just to be able to get out of bed. I'm so depressed. I want to die. I'm battling
thoughts. I have unforgiveness, hatred, demons coming out of me.
Don't leave me to my nightmares.
They're gonna get your ass. Yes, they will, my brother. The game is up. The jig is up. Okay, so now what I have for you guys. Okay. It was promised to you. I got the best that I could get. And so we're going to go over that right now. Let me take these earphones off for a little bit. And then I'm going to back it up with proof because that's what I like to do. So Leslie had got me, you know, I don't know if you would consider this a video. I got to see what, no, it's going to be considered an image. All right. Give me owl. Oh, how odd. Oh, no. Okay, I see what's wrong. Leslie had given me, now I have to read this, so you're going to have to just bear with me. We're dealing with 58-year-old eyes here. Now, this was a portion that she took out as a screenshot, and I'm going to show you what I mean in a minute, but let me just read this to you. This is, again, from September 5th, 2021, the day before Chris Skinner passes away, okay? Whenever you've had a hard time figuring out who you are, it's because a lot of times you've been in a manipulative relationship in the past. You've been abused. I can't tell you how many people in this church have been abused by someone that was supposed to love them and protect them and cause them to hold back who God made them to be. And they feel like, I gave this analogy last week, you feel like you're drowning. And that person, every time you come up for air, they're pushing you back down underwater. All right. I'll just let you chew on that for a minute. Now, in the same sermon, and I want to make sure I have it for you. I feel like something's missing here. Well, let's see if it's in here. We're just going to look, okay? Oh, Funabla. It's the same thing. Sorry, excuse me. I guess it's considered a video then. Let me see. Okay, all right. Calm down. I want to find this. Okay, here we go. So bear with me because I have to, and this is important. This is talking about personalities. Okay, so my Mother Teresa was a high S. Gandhi was a high S, high C personality there. He's talking about personalities, okay? Now I want to get to the point where he talks about his own personality. And it should be in here somewhere. He considers himself the same personality, and if I'm not mistaken, it was D. I might have passed it. Let me look. Okay. So let me just go through this real quick right in front of you. I just want to show you, this is a transcript of that very service. And he talks about his own personality. Now, if it's not in here, okay, high D. Which is what he claims to be. Lord Jesus, show it to me so I don't have to go through all this. Because the last thing I want to do is to have to read his words. And he talks about being a high D. Here's the high D weaknesses. They're very impatient. They're very direct. There's always, they get to the point. They can't relax. They lack empathy. They're arrogant. Okay. Okay. So he talks about the high D being the devil. And somewhere in here, Hillary Clinton and Hitler. Here we go. So the high D can do great things. The biggest battle for a high D is pride. Other high Ds, King Saul, Hillary Clinton, Hitler. He does say in here, and I might have passed it, and forgive me if I have. What I'll do is I'll put this up as a video so that if you want to go through the transcript. Outbursts of anger. Please look at that. Outbursts of anger. He talks about that. Outbursts. They have outbursts of anger and then they forget about it. Okay. Okay, so I guess I did pass where he says he is a high D. I'll try one more time. To try to find where he says he is a high D. Okay, well, I can't seem to find it. It just isn't showing, or my eyes are not catching it. If you guys see it, are all high Ds. That's what he said. Of course, my stutter. This is talking about Moses. Here's the thing: the Lord responded, who made him. Okay. You know what God is saying? I want you to rely on somebody. Okay. You don't need to rely on anybody. It's important for me to show you, and I'm going to show you why. This is important. I just need to pray for God to give me this. He did. He gave it to you in the relationship with that person. Very important. That was all great. Okay. So Moses thought, okay, I'm going to bring Aaron. He speaks here. But just know, okay, this person's right there with me and going to help me in this area of my life. Man, it's so important that we recognize how much we need each other, the body of Christ. High D weaknesses, okay. I'm not going to look at you when I say this because you Ds will kill me. Okay, but anyway, here's the high D. I remember hearing him say, they're very direct. They're always thinking in their mind, no matter who they're talking about, they're always thinking this, get to the point. They're impatient. They can't relax till the project's. I remember him saying he was. Okay, guys, we're just going to have to find the actual video because I did a show on this. I did a show on it. And I remember watching this and hearing him say the words, I am a high D. So either there must be text missing or I'm just not seeing it. They're incredibly intimidating to confront. I told you Donald Trump's a high D. I'll list a few more in a second. The thing about high D is out of the personality gifts, the high D can be used greatly by the devil, just as equal as he or she can be used by Jesus. And I'll show you that. Okay, he talks about 1 Peter. Oh, gosh. Okay, this is just too difficult. They're very direct. Okay. So here's the biggest battle for the high D. Biggest battle. Don't confuse those two, by the way. Anyway, hi, I'm joking. I'm not going to look at you, but I'm joking. High weaknesses. I guess the text is not in here, and somehow it's missing. And whoever took this, I don't know if there's a piece that's missing. He did say it. Yes, he did. He did say it. And so when I'm gonna give you something to fall back on here. So don't worry, I'm not gonna leave you hanging here. Okay, let's just get through this and see if he mentions it at all. Okay. So there must be something that I'm missing, or there's text is missing here. So no worries. This is somebody that you all recognize and know. And this is when I covered the personality analysis. So now you get to see my face. For everybody that says, I can't see you anymore. Well, here I am. No makeup, the whole thing. Okay, so we're going to go over something that J.P. Miller had said on the altar, pseudo altar of soiled rock. And I think you're going to find a lot of this very interesting. Remember, when people tell you who they are, believe them. And that actually came from Oprah and the demonic side of things. Yet, they tell on themselves, they can't help it. This is how the Lord helps the delusional trip up. So he said that he had the same personality as Hillary Clinton, of Hitler, and of Satan. Okay, now I don't think we have to do a personality analysis on Satan. I think that's pretty obvious. The word is filled with it. But let's do the other two. Okay, and you're going to find some things very, very interesting. Now, let's start with Hillary. Hillary, like most people know, just like Nancy Pelosi, just like Barack Obama, she was an actual student of Saul Alinsky, okay? And Saul was wackadoo. Now, he did go through quite a bit of child trauma, and but the result of that child trauma, according to a Time article dated March 2nd, 1970, he has a split personality and believes that a well-developed case of schizophrenia is essential to a successful radicalism. He considers himself an agnostic Jew. You talk about not being able to know who you are. I mean, both sides of your mouth. I mean, it's just crazy. He was rebellious, very rebellious against authority. Sound familiar? He was impressed with criminals. So after his graduation, this is Saul Alinsky, he received his first lesson in the realities of power as a graduate fellow in criminology. He studied Al Capone and Al Capone's gang. Okay? Remember that name because it was JP who brought that up while on the pulpit. He knows what people need to hear. So he believed in effective communication. You had to know how to speak to different people on their levels and what they needed to hear, okay? To make a point, he stated, the things that worked for him was spreading rumors, blackmail, and that really kind of fits with the rules for radicals that he wrote. And I do have the rules here. I mean, this is not about Alinsky, but this was someone who really had an influence on Hillary Clinton. So this is why I'm bringing him up. So the rules for radicals, I'll just go over them real quick, and then we'll go into Hillary. Okay. Number 1, power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Number 2, never go outside the expertise of your people. Number 3, whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Number 4, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. Number 5, ridicule is a man's most potent weapon. Number 6, a good tactic is one your people will enjoy. Number 7, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a dread. Number 8, keep the pressure on, never let up. Number 9, the threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. Number 10, if you push a negative hard enough, it will push through and become a positive. 11, the price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. Sounds good, right? And number 12, and this is the most disturbing one. Pick a target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Okay? Cut off the support network. Isolate that target. Go after people and institutions if you must. Find its vulnerability. Okay. He was a very rude, he knew how to be likable in certain situations, but he was a very rude man. Okay, now he did not, according to the Jerusalem Post, the 2012 article, and I do have that, I have all these articles, the ones that I am citing, that he did not dedicate a book to Lucifer, but he gave him props. And what he said was that, the devil challenged authority and got his own kingdom. This guy was the king of wackadoos, okay? Now, enough of him, let's go to Hillary. So, on personalitypolitics.org, there was a method called MIDC, and it's a 170-item Milan inventory of diagnostic criteria. And this is a personality analysis method, okay? And I have that article as well, done by doctors, psychologists. So she was under an adaptive elitist narcissist. That was the name of the predominant personality pattern. And the description of that was ambitious, self-serving, narcissist, dominant, controlling, infused with secondary features of conscientiousness, dutiful, reserved patterns, but distrusting and suspicious. Okay? That's good old Hill Dog. Now, let's move on to Hitler. Now, Hitler did have a traumatic childhood and loved his mother, respected his father, but hated him and resented him. Okay? And that's in this article that I had found, independent.co.uk, done in 2017, where an analysis was done by a Harvard psychologist, Dr. Henry Murray. This is what he found in his analysis. You're talking about there was probably plenty of material on Hitler for him to do this, and he did. He was paranoid. He was incapable of normal human relationships. He had intolerable feelings of inferiority. I don't know, sexually, I hate using that word because, I don't want it to be a red flag. He was known to be a full-fledged masochist. He had multiple partners. He had emotional collapses from a guilty conscience. And then there would be this 5-step evolution from when he would be attacked or get upset or something bad would happen in his life. And this would be the reaction in the 5 steps. And the doctor says that this 5-step evolution could last from 24 hours to several weeks.
Pay attention to
I want
this.
you to take this in mind as I'm reading it.
Pay attention.
Number 1, an emotional outburst, tantrum, rage, and accusatory indignation to self-pity. Number 2, then it would be periods of exhaustion, melancholy, and indecisiveness. Number 3, then it would be dejection. Number 4, then he would go into recuperation. He'd be recuperating from his pity party. And then he would go into a confident and resolute decision to counterattack with great force and ruthlessness. And again, this doctor said that this 5-step reaction from 1 to 5 could actually evolve in a matter of 24 hours to several weeks. Why do I bring this up? And again, JP is the one who said on the altar that this is who his personality is just like, is exact. If we think about, now it's been alleged, and we're not really sure, I'm not really sure, that Mica had given papers to the authorities or some kind of evidence to the authorities earlier that week of April, she passed on April 27th, so it would have to be earlier in that week. Then on the 25th, served JP. Okay, I want you to take those 5 steps into consideration on his reaction. And if his personality, according to, he admitted it, his words, if he has the same personality as Hitler, okay, then that means that it's most likely he went through that 5-step evolution of reaction. And let me just go over it one more time for clarification. An emotional outburst, tantrum, rage, accusatory indignation to self-pity. Number 2, then periods of exhaustion, melancholy, and decisiveness. Number 3, dejection. Number 4, recuperation. And number 5, confident and resolute decision to counterattack with great force and ruthlessness. Okay, again, when people tell you who they are, believe them. I'm going to leave that with you people. And you tell me, I got to tell you, I tried to nap all afternoon, and the Lord was just, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I'm like, why? And then as I started to do the study on it, it was obvious why. And I don't know why the Lord wants this to come out now, but he wants it to come out now. So we'll call this JP's personality analysis because he gave himself that title. I've seen it played. Robbie Harvey's played it. I think even JLR's played it. Many people have played that he has said this on the pseudo altar of soiled rocks. So he cannot say, oh, I never said that. We have the proof. So here it is. With actual medical professional breakdown of both people. And then, of course, Satan, we don't, God broke that down in the Word of God. So food for thought, and I'd love to see your feedback. I look forward to it. God bless. Okay, so we're going to...
Whoops-a-daisy. Okay, so why is that important now? Let's remember that 5-step process. That's why I played it. And this is connected to both Mica and Chris's death. I want you to think about that. Let's jump over to Chris for a second. Chris goes up to JP. Leave my wife and kids alone. Now, JP is already... Because remember, women to John Paul are possessions. They're not people. And the earlier videos that we watched of Jack Fox prove that. He didn't refer to Mica as a person. He referred to Mica as someone who served him and his needs. Okay, this is why he could go through women like people go through underwear. Because they were objects. They're not, human beings and people where he considered their feelings and their needs and their wants and their desires. Only his were considered to himself. That's what a narcissist is. And the type of personality he gave himself, which he probably got that analysis from his own therapist. That's why he knew it. And then brought up these other people, Hillary Clinton, and I'm sorry, Donald Trump. I looked up Donald Trump. He is not a type D. But yes, Satan, Hitler, and Hillary Clinton absolutely are, and I was able to prove that. And with Hitler, upon being attacked or feeling that your person or your ego has been attacked, which is exactly what Chris did when Chris told him, stay away from my wife. Because in John Paul's mind, because Susie and he had already been intimate, Susie belonged to him. How dare you tell me to stay away from her? I've already had her. She belongs to me. Okay? Because he's a narcissist. And he's a psychotic one at that. And how can we prove that? Robbie Harvey just proved it. Once again, we hear Mica speaking clear with clarity. Yeah, God is wrapping this up and getting ready to lower the boom. Amen. I'm telling you, that's been prophesied and it's about to hit. And it's going to hit hard. I'm telling you, the graces ran out. Remember when I told you about the rope? You either have a rope to save yourself or hang yourself. The rope is around the neck and it's ready to go. Okay? So yeah, we're at that point. And this is why this is very important. So the 5-step process, it literally said in this analysis from this doctor from Harvard that it could take from days to weeks for it to go through that 5 steps. So here we got a 2-week window with Chris. Chris says this to John Paul. John Paul goes through the 5 steps. And what was the last step? Resolute and ruthless attack back. Ruthless. It's like murderous. Okay? Seeing red. Ending it all. Taking full revenge. Do you understand? That's exactly what he did with Mica. Okay? He did all the, we heard it just again. That's that pity party. Oh my gosh, how can they talk to me like that? Oh, feel bad for me, yada, yada. Attacking, and I also read to you the 12 steps of the rules for radicals. Hillary Clinton followed that to the letter. Okay? And so part of that was to destroy. The very last 12 steps of that was to destroy. And you can watch this video again. It's on my YouTube to hear it again. At the very end of their responses is always to annihilate. Okay? Mica challenged him by serving him successfully with divorce papers and a protection order. How dare you, object of mine, that belongs to me, that I paid for? Notice what he said to the kid that he was on the beach with, that Mica was on the beach with. You notice where he went? You touched your boobs? That's all he cared about. You know why? He paid for the boobs and the boobs belong to him. Object. He looked at Mica and her body as an object. No different than your car in your garage. That's an object. No different than your lamp. It's an object. Somebody comes into your house and grabs your lamp, you're going to go, what the hell are you doing? That's fine. That's exactly how he treated Mica. Okay, when she challenged him by going, I'm not your object. I'm leaving, and I'm going to stop you from bothering me through this protective order. And he went, oh, yeah? Went through the 5 steps, and you know what the 5th step was? We found her in the water. Okay? Same thing with Chris. Are you going to mess with me? Now, I'd love to know when that conversation happened with the witness. Because if that conversation, the witness said about John Paul asking Chris, hey, about that remote control, can I try your remote control? If that happened within weeks before Chris's death, we just, as Matthew just said, we hit the target. Okay? John Paul himself, okay, has solve all these crimes. You know that? It's not me. It's not Robbie Harvey. It's not JLR. It's not Steph. It's not anybody else that has reported on this case or both cases at this point, Chris and Mica. It's been John Paul. John Paul and his pride, his arrogance, and his ego. He can't keep his mouth shut. He brags about how he gets away with stuff. He's very comfortable in saying whatever he wants to say. And he's pretty much handed us both cases on a silver platter. So if he wants to be angry with anybody, if he wants to sue anyone, he should look in the mirror, because that's his worst enemy. The grace has run out. The love will always be there of God. Jesus will always love, but the grace has ran out. It's over. So as Allie had said, this might be it. God is wrapping it up. He's making it very clear to everyone that's watching why he strikes the way he strikes. Now, being that this is the Lord God and he's, pissed off, it may not go the way we think, where it's going to be helicopters and dogs and tanks and men with, weapons. It may go another way. God may strike him down. And we're just going to have to deal with whatever God, a life for a life, that's in the Word. I'll read it to you if you like, because it's very easy to find. Scripture's about, I'm going to call it homicide. Leviticus 24:17, whoever takes a human life shall surely be put to death. Exodus 21:12, whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. Genesis 9:6, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. Jesus didn't come to get rid of the law. He came to fulfill the law. Okay? A revelation that came to me this morning, if you look at Psalm 110, verse 1, it talks about the Lord Father saying to the Lord Son that he will be the highest in all of the universe, his name and who he is. That's Jesus Christ. Okay? So why is that important? Why would Jesus Christ, who is acknowledged throughout the whole Old Testament, come into the days of the New Testament and go, nah, we're not going to pay attention to the laws of the Old Testament. I'm just going to wipe them away and we'll make a whole new bunch of rules. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. If that's in his word, that's in his word. The end. Okay? It's all ran out now. It's over. They've had over a year to repent and make things right. They've had over a year to throw their hands up in the air and say, okay, we did this. We're going to take our punishment now, and we're going to make peace with God and repent, give the families the truth that they deserve, and then when we leave this earth, we'll be right with God. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to do things their way. Well, you know why? Jesus turns his back eventually. He wipes his feet off from people who rebel. And just because you're standing in a building that you call a church doesn't mean that you're saved. That doesn't save you. Just because you know how to preach a word, Satan can do that. Satan knows the word from beginning to end. Remember, he knows how to be the angel of light. So just because you call yourself pastor and you got yourself a little pastor pin and badge, and because you're able to suck off the teat of the people and pay your bills with it, doesn't mean God ain't watching everything that's going on and what you've been doing and what you've done to others and how you victimize and preyed on his children. So Very good point. Maybe God made us be patient for Mica to also bring out the light of Chris. I think that really what it is I agree with that, but let me just rephrase it. I think that God made us lay out everything truthful about Mica to make it possible to see what kind of person we were dealing with and how corrupt this person is, that it was highly probable he would also do this to Chris, because early on, I didn't know how technologically advanced he was. It took a long time before I came to that conclusion through witnesses that had come forward and said what they had seen in his house. And I haven't reported on that because I can't report on it. Okay. I can tell you that I've heard it, but I can't come out and say what these people, they don't want to be exposed as of yet. Maybe after they're arrested, they will. Who knows? But right now, I have to just respect how they feel and protect their safety. But this is what's been told. He's got a whole system in that house going on. And yeah, I caught on Jack Fox's videos a lot of ums. I find that interesting as well. Maybe it wasn't TCR. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was John Paul Miller, who made that call on July 7th and made that call on April 27th. Why not? His father owns 2 VoIPs. It's not as if it's not possible. You know what I mean? So, pardon me. So, there you go. We've laid it out. I'm going to try to find the actual sermon, if it's, so we can actually, see the sermon, hear the sermon that Chris sat in on the very last day of his life and what he heard coming from that pseudo altar, as I refer to it. And then we can pick it apart. According to the video that I had just done, I guess JLR and Robbie Harvey have it on their channels. If you happen to come across it, please share it with me and we will play it. We could play it tomorrow or whenever. Who knows? We're waiting now to find out if the coercive control with the Mica list has gone through and has been voted in and approved. Today is May 8th. And who knows what tomorrow brings, people. We may be reporting arrests or a death. Whatever God chooses. So thank you for joining me today. I hope that this was informative. Like I said, if you can find that particular sermon of September, I think it was 5th, 2021, please send that to me. And until I see you guys again, thank you for joining me. Please stay safe and God bless.